Deep in the shadows of your mind, a chilling truth stirs about women. They don't simply fall in love with men, they fall in love with an idea, a fantasy, a projection of what a man should be. The most terrifying part? Most of them don't even know they're doing it. You might think she's choosing you for who you are, but often she's choosing a version of you she's conjured in her own psyche, a psychological marionette designed to play a starring role in her private theater. When you deviate from the script she's written, she doesn't rewrite the story, she recasts the actor. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, called this projection the animus, the inner masculine archetype that resides in every woman's unconscious. When this animus is immature, undeveloped, or left unchecked, it becomes a tyrant, an invisible force that drives women to pursue dangerous men while rejecting good ones, to argue without reason, to dominate without wisdom, and to moralize without taking accountability for their own contradictions. Jung didn't mince words. He described this state as a form of spiritual possession, where a woman's actions are no longer guided by her conscious self, but by the shadowy grip of this inner masculine fantasy. Men, you fall into this trap because no one ever taught you to recognize it. You confuse being desired with being truly known, being chosen with being deeply understood. You take her at her word when she says you're different, special, the one she's been waiting for. But in reality, you're often just the latest face she's cast in a role she's been rehearsing since she was a girl, shaped by fairy tales, cultural myths, and unresolved wounds. When the fantasy inevitably collapses, when the mask slips, and you fail to embody the character she's projected onto you, you're left bewildered, betrayed, and humiliated, racking your brain to figure out what you did wrong. Here's the harsh truth: you didn't do anything wrong. You simply stopped being a convincing actor in someone else's play. Jung's antidote to this psychological drama was individuation, a grueling, lifelong process of becoming whole within yourself, of integrating the fragmented parts of your psyche to stand as a complete man. But let's be honest, most men never even start this journey. You've been conditioned from childhood to seek approval, to chase validation, to let women or others define your worth. As long as you live this way, you'll keep auditioning for the same role, only to be replaced when the audience grows bored. Individuation isn't glamorous or easy. It's brutal, raw, and often excruciating. It demands that you confront the parts of yourself you've buried: the weak, the insecure, the broken, the shameful. It requires you to stop pointing fingers at women for not seeing the real you, and to start seeing yourself with unflinching honesty. Jung knew something most men will never grasp. You don't become a man by being chosen by someone else. You become a man by choosing yourself, by standing alone, fully awake, fully responsible, fully alive. A man who has faced his own unconscious, who has wrestled with his own shadows, cannot be seduced by projection. He is no longer a puppet dancing on someone else's strings. He is the author of his own reality, writing his story with clarity and purpose. Jung observed a tragic flaw in modern men. Not that they are rejected, but that they are willing to contort themselves into whatever shape they believe will earn acceptance. You call it compromise, partnership, or even love, but Jung had a stark term for it: self-betrayal. Men who neglect their own psychic development, who refuse to do the inner work of confronting their fears and weaknesses, become slaves to the feminine projection. You bend yourself like soft clay into the shapes demanded by women who often unknowingly are themselves driven by their own unconscious desires. In doing so, you cease to be a man and become a mask, a hollow performance of smiling, nodding, agreeing, and conforming until you can no longer remember who you were before you put the mask on. And women? They sense this inauthenticity, this lack of inner strength, even if they can't articulate it. The very qualities you think will make her love you, obedience, predictability, constant availability, are the very reasons she loses attraction. Why? Because as Jung taught, the feminine instinct isn't drawn to comfort or safety alone. It's drawn to mystery, to risk, to the man who cannot be fully defined, controlled, or tamed. The moment you make yourself too transparent, too accommodating, without boundaries or a backbone, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, disposable, replaceable. Here lies the cruel paradox that keeps so many men trapped. You fear being alone far more than you fear being inauthentic. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather live as a character in her story than face the terror of standing without applause, without validati, without someone to tell you you're enough. But Jung taught that true freedom, true manhood, comes only through embracing that solitude. Individuation is a path of death and rebirth, where you let the false versions of yourself burn away so that something real, something unbreakable, can emerge. This process is lonely, often terrifyingly so, because as you walk this path, you begin to see things you cannot unsee. You notice the games people play, the masks they wear, the lies they tell themselves to feel safe in a chaotic world. You see the projections, the manipulations, the unspoken scripts that govern so much of human interaction. When you try to point this out, to share what you've learned, most people will recoil. They'll mock you, call you cold, arrogant, or too serious. They'll accuse you of being the problem, but you're not the problem. You're the mirror, reflecting truths they're not ready to face. Jung warned that women too are often raised in cultures that discourage them from confronting their own shadows, their own animus. They're told they are inherently pure, emotional, intuitive, and complete just as they are, without need for inner work. But Jung saw through this myth. He wrote that the greatest danger to a woman's psyche is her unconscious animus, that inner masculine voice that speaks with false certainty, false authority, and false moral superiority. If she doesn't face and integrate this force, she becomes its prisoner, projecting it onto every man she meets, blaming them for the internal war she refuses to wage. And you, thinking you're her knight in shining armor, her savior, her exception, step willingly into this trap. You believe that if you love her hard enough, prove yourself loudly enough, perform well enough, she'll finally see you for you. But that's not how projection works. Jung taught that projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with illusion. Until both men and women awaken from this spell, they're doomed to repeat the same tragedy, each blaming the other, never realizing they're both dancing with shadows. Here's the irony that cuts deepest. The woman who once saw you as her hero will one day see you as her enemy, not because you changed, but because you failed to live up to the fantasy she projected onto you. She won't even realize she's doing it. Jung called this psychological betrayal inevitable when neither party takes responsibility for their own inner world. You didn't lie to her, you didn't deceive her. You simply disappointed the invisible character she invented in her unconscious mind. You were never that character to begin with, and that's why she resents you, not for your flaws, but for failing to embody a myth she never told you you were hired to play. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Nowhere is this truer than in romantic relationships. Both men and women enter them not as whole individuals, but as walking projections, dragging their unresolved fears, unmet needs, and childhood wounds into the arms of someone they barely know. You call it love. Jung called it possession. Like a man under a spell, you keep walking into this trap, convinced that this time it will be different. But it never is, because you haven't yet asked the most terrifying question a man can ask himself. What if I am the one responsible for this pattern? It's tempting to blame women, to call them manipulative, deceptive, or shallow. But Jung would look you in the eye and ask, and why did you choose to be with a woman who projects like that in the first place? The man who refuses to confront his own inner feminine, his own unconscious needs, emotions, and vulnerabilities, is destined to be a slave to hers. You're not a victim, you're a volunteer. You chose to play the fool, to be the actor in her private myth, because facing your own emptiness, your own lack of wholeness, was far scarier than performing in someone else's fantasy. This is where the comfort ends and the responsibility begins. Jung didn't offer quick fixes or motivational platitudes. He didn't give you a 3-step guide to becoming an alpha male. He gave you a brutal, lifelong challenge, the work of self-confrontation, of sitting alone in the silence of your own mind until the illusions begin to crack, until the voice that says you're nothing without her starts to fade. That voice will fight for its life. It will scream that you need her, that you're incomplete without feminine validation, that no man can live without love. But Jung's work whispers a dangerous counter-truth. The man who can stand without her, without approval, without applause, is the man who is truly free, free from projection, free from performance, free from the tyranny of living as someone else's idea of a man. When you reach that place, something shifts. Women will be drawn to you not because you need them, but because you don't. You'll love not out of desperation, but from a place of strength, of wholeness. You'll become a mirror, reflecting truth to those who dare to look. Most won't. They'll resent you for not needing their validation, for stepping off their stage, for refusing to read from their script. Jung quipped that the gods have become diseases, that what ancient cultures called divine possession, modern psychology calls neurosis. Men chasing validation are among the most spiritually afflicted. You think it's romantic to say, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would shake his head and tell you this isn't love. It's a refusal to carry your own soul. It's easier to project your hope, meaning, and purpose onto a woman, to make her the bearer of your identity. But no woman, no matter how loving, can carry the weight of a man who refuses to hold himself. When she inevitably drops that burden, she must, because it was never hers to carry. Don't feel betrayed, thank her. In that moment of collapse, you stand face to face with the truth. The work of becoming a man is yours alone. You have 2 paths from here. You can blame her, grow bitter, join the chorus of men who mock women, resent them, or swear them off entirely, hiding your cowardice behind bravado. Or you can do what Jung demanded, turn inward, start the lonely, terrifying, liberating work of individuation, of becoming whole without needing someone else to complete you. The woman you're searching for out there is a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned, your own inner feminine, your own capacity for feeling, creativity, and connection. Until you face that part, every relationship will be a performance, every connection a transaction, every love a lie. But when you do face it, when you integrate your inner world, you stop chasing. You stand still, rooted in who you are, and something miraculous happens. You no longer attract women who want a character. You attract women who want the truth. You'll know her when you meet her. She won't demand you perform or complete her. She'll have done her own work, faced her own shadow, confronted her own animus, burned through her own illusions. She'll stand before you whole, not as a goddess seeking worship, but as a human ready to walk beside you. No masks, no projections, no games, just truth. This is the rarest, most dangerous love, born not of need, but of freedom. freedom to choose, to walk away together, to stand together without illusions or fear. Most men will never reach this. They'll settle for the fantasy, the temporary high of being seen as someone they're not, because facing their own emptiness feels too daunting. But if you have the courage, the brutal, gut-wrenching courage to keep walking, to keep standing alone, to strip away every false layer you've built to earn approval, you'll find something terrifyingly beautiful: yourself. Women will no longer be the source of your identity or the mirror you use to feel like a man. They'll become something else: partners, not prizes; mirrors, not mothers; allies, not saviors. You'll love them, not because you need them, but because you choose to, from a place of strength, of wholeness, from a place that knows, without apology, who you are. Jung didn't leave you a step-by-step guide. He left you a warning. A man who refuses to confront himself will be a slave to the projections of others, especially those of women. And he left you a challenge. Walk the path of individuation. Choose yourself relentlessly and become the author of your own life. The man who does this cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance. It cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes something else entirely. A man who stands unapologetically, untouchable, alive in his own truth. If this message has hit you somewhere deep, if you feel it stirring something within you, don't let it fade into the noise of your day. Don't just scroll away and move on to the next distraction. Take a moment, right now, to like this message. Share it with another man who needs to hear this truth, and subscribe for more content like this. Your support isn't just for us. It's for the next man who's still trapped in the illusion, waiting for a wake-up call to set him free. Help us spread this message. Help us wake up the world, one man at a time.